and unsurpassed, penetrating and perfect dharma, it is rarely met with, even in 100,000 million kalpas. Having it to see and listen to, remember and accept, I vow to taste the truth of the Tathagata's words. Good morning, everyone. It's good to see faces. Faces that I haven't seen in a while, faces that I've seen recently. It's good to see everyone here. I think we've got all eyes point to really good weather this week. Maybe the sound of spring. I know the robins will appreciate it. I wrote out a topic, I wrote out a talk. I'll probably go by some of it, but some of this will be just something that kind of comes from what's been on my mind. And one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot lately is leadership, and trying to understand what leadership is. Since my ordination, it's been on my mind, not because I am some sort of leader now, but just kind of poses the question, what is a leader? You know, I find myself very familiar with what leadership is. I'm involved in a lot of different things. A lot of those things involve leadership. So, for example, I serve on nonprofit boards and foundations. And those are people who are in charge of an organization. At work, I'm a manager. I have to work with staff to get things done. I have to lead them. I serve an elected office. I'm responsible for a city. Well, 20% responsible for a city. I'm a coach, high school soccer coach. 5th year, by the way. And so, since I began my practice several years ago now, I haven't found anything that falls outside of my practice. Everything falls within my practice. You know, you'll often hear, oh, yeah, but it'll be great when I get to do this. Or, you know, yeah, I'm doing that right now, but later I'm going to do this. As though somehow that is different from, this time is different from that time. Whatever role I play, my practice is right here. So now as I embark on this idea of priesthood, I work on understanding this role and all that it encompasses. It reminds me of a story that I like to think about a lot, which was somebody had asked Shunryu Suzuki one time what it was to be a priest. It might have been Mel Weitzman. I speak as though I know. I mean, I don't, but I read this at one point in time. And he asked him, what is it to be a priest? And Shunryu Suzuki kind of laughed. I'm paraphrasing here. And he says, I don't know, Katagiri, what is it to be a priest? You know, because Diane Katagiri was practicing in San Francisco at the time. And they just kind of were like, who knows? I don't know. What is a priest? You know, so that really kind of throws into the face of our kind of Western minds this idea of what we know a leader is, or what we know what a priest is. Now, I remember when I first started attending the Zen Center, I was trying to figure out who was in charge. And maybe you've had similar experiences where you come here and you're like, this organizational structure is foreign to me. It's not something that I'm familiar with. I was trying to figure out who was in charge. I remember feeling like no one was in charge. And those that were in charge didn't want to be. So you can imagine I'm thinking, what? What am I getting myself into here? You know, and some of that falls into the, you know, recognizing there's some discomfort because you don't quite understand exactly what's happening. You know, it's common for me to try to break down the social organization of things. You know, being an anthropologist in a previous life, I was trained to look at social patterns and try to understand what made organizations function and how they could be successful. In my case, I was always looking at the prehistoric remnants of those organizations and trying to infer what things were like. I used to call them, I still do, I used to call them just so stories. You know, this is just how it happened. Let me tell you, it's just so. Anyway, typically speaking, for organizational structures to survive and be successful, they have to have leadership roles that are identifiable, or at least I thought they did. My first several months at the Zen Center, I was a bit skeptical. I really was trying to understand how the Zen Center functioned without someone telling everyone what to do. Ada was spending a lot of time in Japan on Ongo. Shuji spent extended time away at Shasta Abbey. And there were no other priests at the time. If you're anything like me, the introduction to this practice was at first very bewildering. And after practicing for a while, it still was bewildering. But I'll tell you, and I've got some prompts in here. Bob stood out as a leader to me when I first started here. I got in little parentheses here waiting for you to kind of snort. He could be gruff in his presentation, but he was always willing to offer advice on sitting and no nonsense practice on the practice. No nonsense advice on the practice. And don't get me wrong, others did as well. I remember this well because we were practicing it on north of Ingersoll on 35th. And one of the things that used to be kind of commonplace was on Wednesdays, people would come who had never been there before and they wanted an introduction to sitting. And of course, nobody wanted to step up because it was just kind of uncomfortable, but Bob would always do it. And that to me was the first sense of somebody kind of having some idea of what was going on. There it was. You know, Aisha was a senior lay ordainee at the time, and he provided guidance and insight. And I could try and name everyone that offered support to me, but I would forget someone because there were so many. I would imagine if you're like me, you have a parochial view of leadership, particularly as it pertains to Western capitalist institutions. Oftentimes we link leadership to authority, and it's got to be hierarchical too. There's got to be somebody over someone else. You know, traditionally monks and priests have been de facto leaders in a sangha with lay practitioners. The argument has been that they lead an ethical life that fell outside the kind of typical karma of householder life. Okay, I think that you find that quite a bit in Asia. You know, this is a common Western Christian practice as well. When you go to church, it's pretty easy to see and hear who is in charge. This is not what I found at the Zen Center. Here I found a very horizontal organization that was founded by lay practitioners 30 years ago. By the way, April 12th, 1992 is the founding of the Zen Center. So we were having a conversation last week with Bob. Bob was saying how it was Palm Sunday, 1992, so that's 30 years. So then I did Google. Google knows. 1992 Easter holidays, and it comes up and tells you April 12th. So that was a month from yesterday, so in a month from now. But with that said, the Zen Center was founded by lay practitioners. Priests are a more recent addition. So if you think about the 30 years, priests haven't been here for 30 years. So what's this got to all to do with anything? Well, I've been reading a lot of Dalai Lama lately, and I came across an article he had on leadership. It was in the Harvard Business Review. And some of this is taken from that, but it really got me thinking about leaders. He suggests that leaders in whatever field they work in have a strong impact on people's lives and how the world develops, which is so true. He also reminds us that we're visitors on this planet, only here for 90 years if we're lucky. And during this time, we should work to leave the world a better place. Better place. How many different ways can we define a better place? And maybe that's part of the problem today. But he says it's a straightforward answer. It's a world where people are happier. Because all humans want to be happy. No one wants to suffer. But it's something we all have in common. I mean, this seems almost impossible to think about it. Look at the world today. Look at the rates of stress, anxiety, and depression. threw that in there because I was having a conversation with Tina recently about her work in pharmacy. And if you look at the top 10 drugs, top 20 drugs prescribed, you know, you can see what they take care of. They take care of high blood pressure, they take care of diabetes, they take care of mental health. And so these are all symptoms of people who are suffering in one way or another. You know, the gap between the rich and the poor and between CEOs and employees is, I don't know that it's ever been higher, but I'm sure it has. And the capitalist focus on turning a profit often overrules a commitment to people, the environment, and society. We commonly see ourselves in terms of us and them, which ignores our human heritage and our interdependence. So again, you're saying, what has this got to do with leadership? Well, the Buddhist tradition describes three styles of compassionate leadership. The trailblazer, that is the one who leads from the front, takes risks, and sets an example. You have the ferryman, who accompanies those in their care and shapes the ups and downs of the crossing. And you have the shepherd, who sees every one of their flock into safety first. Three styles, three approaches, but what they all have in common is an all-encompassing concern for the welfare of those who they lead. So what are some leadership qualities to consider in trying to make the world a better place? Remember, we're all leaders. Some of us in here don't think we're leaders, but we're all leaders. We lead our practice, but we are also compassionate and want to help other people when possible. You know, the Buddha, when he was training his Sangha, there was, I think the story is 60 arhats, and they had all found enlightenment. He sent them off. And he didn't send them off with the idea, check in every once in a while and let me know how things are going, because I need to tell you how to do what you do. He trained them to be able to be independent leaders themselves. So much of our practice is about that. It's not about telling somebody what their practice should be, it's about what our practice is. So what are some characteristics? First, be mindful. Cultivate peace of mind. As human beings, we have an intelligence that allows us to analyze the past and plan for the future. We have a language that allows for us to communicate what we have learned and understood. We also have destructive emotions such as anger and attachment, which cloud our ability to use our intelligence clearly. Fear and anxiety give way to anger and violence. According to the Dalai Lama, the opposite of fear is trust, which with trust you have self-confidence. Compassion also reduces fear, reflecting as it does the concern for the well-being of others. When we're under the sway of anger or attachment, we limit our ability to take full and realistic view of the present moment. When the mind is compassionate, it is calm, and we're able to use our sense of reason practically, realistically, and with determination. So be mindful. Next, be selfless. Humans are naturally driven by self-interest. I mean, it is necessary to survive in some level. But we need wise self-interest that is generous and cooperative, taking others' interests into account. Cooperation comes from friendship, friendship comes from trust, trust comes from kind-heartedness. Once you have a genuine sense of concern for others, there's no room for cheating or bullying or exploiting. Instead, you can be honest, truthful, and transparent. Finally, be compassionate. The ultimate source of a happy life is warm-heartedness. When it comes to human beings, compassion can be combined with intelligence. Through the application of reason, compassion can be extended to all living beings. Destructive emotions are related to our ignorance, while compassion is constructive and related to our intelligence. The source of a happy life is within us. What we need is to pay attention. The distinction between violence and nonviolence lies less in the nature of a particular action and more in the motivation behind the action. Actions motivated by anger and greed tend to be violent, whereas those motivated by compassion and concern tend to be peaceful We won't bring about peace by praying for it. We have to take steps to tackle violence and corruption that disrupts peace. We can't expect change if we don't take action. Peace also means being undisturbed, free from danger. It relates to our mental attitude and whether we have a calm mind. What is crucial to realize is that ultimately peace of mind is within us. It requires that we develop a warm heart and use our intelligence. People often don't realize that warm-heartedness, compassion, and love are actually factors for survival of our world. So the next time you find yourself in a situation where you've been called upon to lead, take a moment, be mindful, be selfless, and offer compassion. May the merit of this penetrate into each thing in all places, so that we and every sentient being together can realize the Buddha way. Sentient beings are numberless. I vow to save them. Desires are inexhaustible. I vow to put an end to them. The